It was 2:47 a.m. I was alone in my cabin, deep in the snow-covered mountains, a place I chose for quiet, isolation, and the kind of peace you can't find anywhere else. But that night, peace became something else entirely. The first knock came softly, not a tap, not a bang, a slow, precise, deliberate knock, the kind someone makes when they want your attention, without startling you, except it did startle me. My heart hammered so violently I could hear it over the wind. I sat there, frozen in my chair, feeling suddenly exposed inside my own home. The cabin had always felt warm, safe, comforting. But now the heavy logs and creaking boards felt more like the ribs of a trap. Outside, the wind cut through the pine trees, dragging with it a faint whisper. A voice that sounded eerily like mine, calling back at me through the storm. I tried to ignore it, tried to breathe, but the nights after that only grew worse. The footsteps started on the second night. They circled the cabin, slow, heavy, calculated. The boards trembled under the weight as if whatever was out there was too large to move quietly. I rushed to the window, expecting to see a figure, an animal, anything that made sense. But the snow outside was untouched, smooth, perfect, no prints. Yet the footsteps kept circling, pressing in, closer. The shadows came next, long, stretched, unnatural, sliding between the trees like black fingers reaching for the cabin. Sometimes, in the corners of my vision, I saw shapes, crouching low, staring at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. But every time I turned, they dissolved back into the tree line, leaving only darkness behind. Inside the cabin, things began moving on their own. A chair shifted a few inches toward the fireplace. My coat turned in the opposite direction I left it. The candle would flicker violently whenever I passed the window. And the mirror, I started avoiding it. But one night, I slipped. I caught a glimpse. Behind me stood a figure, tall, distorted, its face a smeared reflection of my own, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an impossible angle. I spun around instantly. Nothing. Just the empty room, the dim glow of the fire, and the shadows trembling against the walls. Even my breathing sounded wrong, like it didn't belong to me anymore. Then came the final night. A loud knock, much harder this time, shattered the silence like a gunshot. Before I could react, a howl echoed across the mountains. Not an animal's howl, not the wind. It was my own scream, played back to me perfectly, as if someone had recorded it and pressed repeat. I rushed to the window. Footprints. My footprints, but stretched far too large, far too long, leading away from the cabin and disappearing into the forest's darkness. I stumbled outside, breath shaking the cold air. On the wall of the cabin, written in frost so thick it looked carved, were the words, "You're next." I didn't wait, didn't look back. I packed what I could in seconds and left everything else behind. I never returned to that cabin, never will. But some nights, when the wind howls through the trees, I swear I still hear that knock, slow, patient, waiting for me to answer. I thought camping alone would be peaceful. The fire crackled under a sky full of stars, the forest breathing around me. But then I heard it, my name, faintly, carried through the trees. I froze. "No one's here," I whispered. But the voice sounded exactly like me, calm, tired, unmistakably my own. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Something was out there, and it wasn't human. The hours stretched on, every sound magnified, branches snapping, leaves rustling, my food untouched. Yet I could swear something moved near the fire. Shadows twisted, sometimes human, sometimes wrong. My flashlight flickered as if reacting to the presence. I could feel it watching me, and the longer I stared into the darkness, the more I doubted my senses. Every crackle of the fire sounded like whispers, saying my name, laughing softly. I tried to retreat into my tent, but even there, I wasn't safe. The zipper moved slowly, almost imperceptibly, as if something was peeking inside. My breath came fast, every noise louder than before, every shadow leaning closer, reaching, studying me. My mind spun. Was I imagining it, or was it real? The fear, the isolation, twisting every sound into terror. At dawn, I saw them, hundreds of footprints surrounding the campfire, some human, some not, stretching in impossible directions, all leading to me. The forest wasn't empty. It had been waiting, watching, planning. I packed quickly and left, but even as I drove away, I could still hear faint whispers calling my name from the woods, from everywhere and nowhere. I picked up a hitchhiker on a deserted highway. Night, fog, headlights cutting through the darkness. Every time I glanced in the rearview mirror, they weren't there. I blinked, and still, gone. The road twisted endlessly, curves and shadows stretching far beyond what seemed natural, and every shadow in the headlights looked like me, but wasn't me. The radio crackled, static, whispers, voices mimicking conversations I'd had long ago, each word chilling, familiar, like someone inside the car, knowing my every thought. I'd tried to drive faster, but the fog, the curves, made escape impossible. The wind whipped through the canyon, carrying distant screams. Or maybe it was just my imagination. Every reflection in the windshield seemed like someone standing behind me, disappearing when I looked directly. I passed abandoned road signs, warped, twisted, letters spelling parts of my own name. Panic gripped me. Every mile the road seemed longer, no exit, no end. Shadows moved on the edges of the headlights, sometimes stretching like hands, sometimes forming my own silhouette, only to vanish when I focused. Finally, I stopped, my hands trembling. The hitchhiker appeared, standing in the middle of the road, exactly like me, smiling. I blinked, and they were gone. Only the footprints remained, human, impossibly long, leading right up to my car. I drove away, heart racing, but the feeling, the watching, hasn't left me. The highway still calls my name.